The time is now 7:01, and I reconvene to open session and call to order the regular board meeting for Monday, April 2nd, 2018 for Indian Prairie School District 204. Jackie, can you call the roll?
Ms. Peel?
Here.
Mr. Carubus?
Here.
Ms. Price?
Here.
Mr. Razak?
Here.
Ms. Deming?
Here.
Mr. Rising?
Here.
Ms. Donahue?
Here.
And Ms. Peel, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have several board salutes today, and I'm going to start with Mr. Rising.
Gladly. The board salutes District 204 Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Lewis Lee, and our esteemed 3 high school principals, I added that, Dr. Bob McBride, Jason Stipp, and Dr. Darrell Eccles, who recently presented SB 100, Where Are We Now? At Loyola University College of Law Conference. Indian Prairie was featured as a district spotlight at the conference and asked to present on our community partnership with 360 Youth Services supporting alternatives for suspensions. Congratulations to all involved.
Thank you.
The board salutes the Mattia Valley High School athletes and coaches who recently participated in the Illinois High School Association Special Olympics Illinois State Unified Basketball Tournament. Special Olympics Unified Sports is a fast-growing initiative that brings people with and without disabilities together on the same team to compete. The Mustangs took second place in state, and the coaches and players did a great job. Congratulations to all involved.
Thank you.
The board salutes Mattia Valley High School's Health Education Department for being awarded their second blue ribbon by the Illinois Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. The award was granted for excellence in the areas of curriculum design, curriculum presentation, technology assessment, and student engagement. Congratulations, Mustangs.
The board salutes the 15 Indian Prairie students who achieved a perfect score on the ACT taken during the school year. Roughly 0.1% of all test takers earn a perfect 36 on the college readiness exam. Congratulations to these very fine students.
Fourth grade guy. Okay, the board salutes the Hill Middle School girls basketball team who recently won the 7AA Naperville Conference Championship. This is the first conference championship for the Blazers at the AA level. Congratulations to the players and coaches.
Okay, and now we go to our student representative report. It's from Neuqua Valley High School, and we have Kaitlyn Backe.
Welcome.
You're gonna have to move.
Unless you want to speak.
I'm pretty loud, so. Okay, well, hello and happy Monday. My name is Kaitlyn Backe, and I'll be catching you up on what Neuqua's been up to. This is also my second to last meeting, sadly, as Neuqua's representative, and we have the Neuqua's next rep, Aria, shadowing me today, so I'm gonna really try not to mess up. On Tuesday, March 20th, we had a college admissions panel. The following day, our language department hosted a World Language Honors Night. All staff and students enjoyed a well-deserved spring break, and I hope you all enjoyed yours as well. Many students participated in a national school walkout on March 14th, which was followed through orderly as well as in an appropriate manner. About 1,500 Neuqua students participated. Our youth and government students took a field trip to Springfield for an exciting General Assembly where over 70 Neuqua kids participated. Our poetry team competed at the Louder Than Bomb competition where Shola Jamo competed at the Indy Finals and ended up in the top 12. We celebrated the Music in Our Schools month with band, orchestra, and chorus concerts. On March 13th, we took a moment for reflection and hosted a celebration of life for Julian Merlino, who was an Neuqua student who sadly passed away in December 2017. We are also hosting One Book, One School, with this year's book being The Boys in the Boat. Once again, we had parent-teacher conferences, and we would like to thank Student Council for helping run them, as well as our amazing PTSA for helping provide a dinner for our hardworking staff. I am happy to announce that Neuqua Valley Olympiad is now state-bound, with a first-place win at their regional competition. Also, congrats to BPA, where 87 NVHS students qualified for the state competition, and of those, 29 qualified for the national competition. Boys swim and dive finished their season with 6th at state. And boys basketball ended their season with a qualification for regionals, but sadly did not advance after that point. This week, we are ecstatic to host our Neuqua Honors Ceremony, where we award students that were nominated for one of the 6 categories by a specific faculty member. Neuqua will also be hosting an annual monologue show this week, where student-written pieces will be performed. As a second-year member, I highly recommend going. It will be at Neuqua this Thursday and Friday at 7 p.m., as well as this Saturday at 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. The cool thing about this show is that each day is a new cast with new pieces. Next week, we will be having SAT testing during school, and on April 11th, we will have our Indian Prairie Scholar Ceremony. Over break, our Neuqua Band Department had a great opportunity to go and tour as well as perform in various parts of Europe. That's what the Wildcats have been up to. Any questions?
Is that your Chromebook you're using?
Oh, every meeting, yeah. Every meeting.
Where are you going to be heading to?
I have one more year at Neuqua, so another proud Wildcat. So he will be the school board rep, and I'm moving up to executive board president, which is very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kaitlyn. It is now time for public comment for non-agenda items. If you are here to speak to an agenda item, that comment will be taken immediately prior to that item. 30 minutes is allowed for public comment, and each person is limited to 3 minutes. When addressing the board, we ask that you respect the confidentiality and safety of our students and school district personnel. We also ask that those addressing the board be cognizant that this is an open meeting and is available to all age groups. And as such, ask that you consider who the audience members are this evening and keep comments age appropriate. Public comment represents the voice and the opinion of the speaker. There will be no feedback from board members during the meeting, but follow-up will be provided by an administrator as appropriate. And our one speaker is Sally Glavin. Hi, Sally.
Sally, would you like to read this piece
She's probably got
by
it
memory?
memorized. You couldn't wait to get up here. I saw you like,
Guess there's a basketball game or something.
yeah, what time? I don't know.
Do this fast.
Spring break.
Spring break, I know people still aren't back. We don't do spring break anymore because empty nesters, we can go whenever we want.
Rub it in.
Well, next year, that's how it goes, yeah. But I'm still here, so what does that tell you?
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Okay. Okay. Over the past few years, I've brought the issue of overcrowded classrooms to the board on a regular basis. You can't say you are unaware of the problem. Sometimes I think we get lost in the discussion of class averages, class size studies, class size contract agreements, and comparable district class sizes, and forget who is really bearing the brunt of the board and administration's continued inaction regarding 204's oversized classrooms. Who is really being shortchanged here? Our students. Tonight, I'd like to share with you the story of 3 students in 204. Student 1 is a senior at one of our high schools. He approached me after last board meeting to let me know that he agreed with everything that I talked about regarding the negative effect of large class sizes. He told me that he is currently in a math class of 42 students. Let that sink in for a moment. A high school math class in this district has 42 students in it. I asked him if there were any aides or maybe 2 teachers. The answer was no. I already knew that, but I asked him anyway. He then told me that it was very hard to learn anything in this particular class. His teacher is very nice and tries her best, but the room is crowded and noisy, and it's just hard to get anything accomplished. At that moment, I was so sad for him and for what our district has become. Student 2 is also a high school senior at another high school. He talked to me at the Engage 204 meetings, and of course I asked him about his school experience related to class sizes. He told me that he has gone to all 13 years of school in 204. He told me that he does not recall ever having a class under 30 students. He really doesn't remember elementary school so much, but he did remember middle and all of high school in large classes. He navigated the situation and has done very well, but he did say he often felt like a number in his classes instead of a student. Again, I wasn't overly happy to hear this, but it didn't surprise me. Student 3 is a high school freshman. He told me all of his classes are in the high 20s or low 30s. He also told me that he would like class sizes to be even higher, like maybe around 40. After I pulled the dagger out of my heart, I asked him why he thought that. He said because in larger classes, the teacher can't pay as much attention to you, so if you sit in the back of the room, you can goof around more. Nice. Also, in larger classes, there would be less work because teachers wouldn't want to grade all of that work or assign so much homework that would have to be graded. And also, you wouldn't have to be as prepared for class because the odds of you having to participate in a large class would be lower than if there were less kids in that class. I found his reasoning so disappointing and troubling for a young man with a lot of potential, but you know what? He's not wrong. A scarier thought, though, is that his wish of class sizes of 40 is extremely likely to happen here if this board does not mandate to our administration that our classes need to be smaller. This has to be addressed and corrected. We can't subject our students to another year of class sizes such as are typical now. If you can't see the problem of large classes, just ask the student and then be prepared to act in their best interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. It's now time to move to our consent agenda and superintendent report. I think we have a short report.
We have a really short report, and also because we have at least one board member who has some interest in a basketball game that's happening later, I think. I can tell. But since we just met before spring break, there really isn't much of an update tonight. So as you know, we welcome back our students from spring break today, and we're headed into the home stretch with only 9 weeks left. And in your folders, I think you saw listings of a lot of the end of the year, at least senior events for your calendar, as well as graduation, which will be here before we know it. So I promise I'll have more to talk about the next time we meet, but with break in between, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Go to the consent agenda. I need a motion that the Board of Education approve consent agenda items D through M.
I move that the Board of Education approve consent agenda items D through M as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Karubas?
Yes.
Miss Donahue?
Yes.
Miss Deming?
Aye.
Miss Peel?
Aye.
Mr. Rasak?
Aye.
Miss Price?
Aye.
Mr. Rising?
Aye.
We move to our action item, which is the consideration and action on a resolution for the redemption and payment for our tax general obligation debt certificates. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion that the Board of Education approve the consolidation and action on a resolution providing for the redemption and payment prior to the maturity of the district's outstanding taxable general obligation debt certificate, Series 2010, and general obligations refunding debt certificates, Series 2014A, as presented.
I have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. String?
Good evening, board members. At the November 1st, 2010 Board of Education meeting, the then Board of Education approved the issuance of 2 debt certificates to finalize the construction of Mattia Valley High School. These debt certificates are different than our bonds, as we don't rely on our property taxes for the repayment. The plan at the time was to use developer contributions, which is money received from developers in lieu of land cash contributions to the district and the future sale of land to pay off the debt. The economic downturn we experienced a few years ago prolonged our opportunity to pay off this debt as the development slowed, particularly residential developments. I'm pleased tonight to inform you that we've now accumulated the proceeds through developer contributions and the sale of land to pay off these debt certificates. Tonight, we're asking the Board of Education to approve the resolution authorizing us to call the bonds. The debt certificates require a 30-day notice to be given. With the approval tonight, that notice will be given first thing in the morning, and the debt certificates will be called on May 3rd. The payoff for these certificates is $9,140,000. At this time, the administration recommends that the Board of Education approve the resolutions providing the redemption of the general obligation debt certificates Series 2010 and general obligation refunding debt certificates Series 2014A.
Questions?
Just a real quick question, Jay. Is this something, because we levy against debt as a district, is this something that our community will see? Anything major, significant as far as property taxes go?
No, and actually, at the time when the final construction of Mattia was required, the Citizens Finance Advisory Council and the Board of Education at the time wanted to make those last payments in the finalization of Mattia without burdening the taxpayers, and realized that the district was reaching its potential end of growth, and that any new developments, we would have the housing for the facilities to house those students. And in lieu of getting a piece of property to build a school, that we would receive cash contributions for new developments, and that those cash contributions for the new developments could pay off this debt. So the plan worked. It just took a little longer than we expected because the recession, the development really slowed in the district.
Okay, cool, thanks.
So we're paying off these debt certificates early in an effort to save interest, right? And this board is well within its right to not do that and maybe use the funds to pay for other things.
Correct.
But I support the notion of paying off the certificates to kind of honor the prior board's decision to use those funds to pay these off. And it makes economic sense to do so, to forego the interest payments. I think it's kind of like what commonly called like a promise to the community to do so. So I like the savings on the interest side, and I like the fact that we're honoring the wishes of the prior board, although we're not obligated to do so.
I overheard you talking about the interest. Can you go over that again?
The original plan was to pay off the debt certificates in the first 5-year period of having them. The 2014A was actually refinanced because we had to do that in 2014 because it was coming due and we didn't have the proceeds available. The interest that we're paying is about $800 a day on these debt certificates, so by paying them off, we lose that interest payment, and as Mr. Karubas said, are following the plan to pay these off that was created in 2010. All future development contributions that come to the district now will be able to be used for our maintenance of our facilities, and we won't have to set it aside for a payment.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, Jackie, call the roll, please.
Mr. Reising?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Rasak?
Aye.
Ms. Donahue?
Aye.
Ms. Peel?
Aye.
Ms. Deming?
Aye.
Mr. Karubas?
Yes.
Motion passes. We now move to our discussion portion of our agenda, and it's our monthly draft budget update.
Didn't we
One day I'm
just
going to
do
do it
this?
from up there. Good evening, board members. This is the first draft budget for fiscal year 2019. I've provided you with the financial forecast, and now I'm presenting you with the first draft budget. There is no action on your part tonight. This is an opportunity for you to look at the budget, ask some questions, and for me to highlight some things inside of it. And then later this spring, you'll have a tentative budget, which does become something that you need to approve and that I need to put on display. But I'd like to give an opportunity for you to go through this first draft budget. This is the first draft budget under the new evidence-based funding formula. So this is a new thing for our district as well as many others. I'll talk a little bit about District Goal 3, both our operating funds and non-operating funds, and where we go from here. District Goal 3 is to manage our resources efficiently and effectively, and by June 30th of each year, the district will receive school financial profile designation of review or recognition. Recognition is the highest, financial review is the second highest, early warning and financial watch is the latest. There are 5 financial indicators that determine that score, and I'll talk about those on the next slide. Previously, the board previous boards wanted a financial recognition and not necessarily review. This board, a number of years ago, changed this board goal so that review was appropriate. That way, it gave you the flexibility to spend into reserves if you felt necessary and still meet the board goal. So there's, as you can see, from 2006 through 2018, we've met recognition or review. In those years where we were in review, that was either at the board's choice to deficit spend for technology or for safety-related items, or delayed state payments from the state of Illinois. So I think it's very fiscally responsible and something.
When there was kindergarten, full day.
Oh, yeah, one year it was 2009, I think, was the implementation of full-day kindergarten. The indicators are to have a fund balance to revenue ratio, which is weighted at 35%. We'll receive a 4 on that because we've got about a 30% fund balance. And that's something that we will expect next year and in future years, is roughly a 30% fund balance. And when we've changed, it's only been by a percentage or two one way or another. We've been very, very stable. That is as of June 30th, and we've received an installment of taxes. That's not our low point in time. It's May that is our low point in time. So that's that recognition is at the end of our fiscal year, but not necessarily our low point in our reserves. Expenditure to revenue ratios, it's a weight of 35%, and we anticipate a score of 4 again. That's basically having a balanced budget, making sure that you don't spend beyond your means. Days cash on hand, anticipate a score of 3. It's a weight of 10%. And the reason for that is that we're very dependent upon the money that we receive. We don't invest out long term. We don't have a lot of money in our reserves, and something that we could probably build on. Percentage of short-term borrowing max remaining. We've never short-term borrowed. Those are tax anticipation warrants, and I expect that we'll receive a score of 4 on that as well. I don't anticipate us taking out a tax anticipation warrant. If that were to happen, it would be because the state of Illinois didn't pay us millions and millions and millions of dollars, and it would be at our low point in time where we'd have to take out some type of short-term loan, but it's not anticipated. Percentage of long-term debt margin remaining, that has a weight of 10%, and I expect a score of 3 again. As you're well aware, we've got until 2027 when we pay off our bonds. As the years go on and we get closer to paying off those bonds, and the amount of margin that we have to take out more loans if we want to grows, that score will go to a 4. But I think we're going to end up with a 3.85% score, which is recognition, and I anticipate that we'll receive recognition next year as well. The fiscal year 2019 first draft budget, it's operating funds. Our operating funds are our education fund, our operations and maintenance, our transportation, IRMF, Social Security, working cash, and court. Our expenditures are up there. You can see that we're at a 30.24% on the bottom right. We're picking up $340,429,504 in total revenue, and $355,405 in expenditures. And the next few screens go into some of the details of the revenue and expenditures in this first draft budget. Our revenue highlights, we're receiving an increase in our local property taxes of 2.1%, which is the consumer price index, which was 2.1% last year, and this December, when we levy, if there's not a freeze on property taxes, would be at 2.1%. That's what this next consumer price index came in at. Our state has increased due to the evidence-based funding formula. Under the old formula, the foundation formula, our dropping student enrollment really impacted how much money we were receiving, and we were receiving about a projected $3 million loss year over year due to our enrollment dropping. But because of our evidence-based funding formula and the personality or the characteristics of our district, we will actually be receiving more. So if you look at the pie chart on the left, fiscal year 2018 revenue, you can see that we received 12.28% in state revenue, and if the state of Illinois comes through with all of its payments to the evidence-based funding formula, in fiscal year 19, we'll receive 14.45%. That's the first time, if the state pays us what they said that they should, in 10 years, that there's been an increase to Indian Prairie School District in state funding. So that's a positive. Federal revenue remains stable, and as I mentioned before, it's $340,429,504 in total revenue. On the operating side, expenditure highlights, all 6 funds of all the 6 funds, the education fund is our largest. That's at 83%. That is the fund that pays for the salaries of our building principals, our teachers, our classified individuals, the textbooks, the operations of the schools. Salaries and benefits on the bottom right are 76% of our total budget. 62% of our budget is salaries, 13.6% is benefits. The 13.7%, which is in the green, is our outsourced services. That's our food service, our transportation, our custodial maintenance. If we brought those folks in-house, we'd have a larger section of that pie that would be our salaries and benefits than it currently is. Operations and maintenance, capital outlay is at $8 million, which is much closer to the EMG study than we've had in the past, thanks to the evidence-based funding formula, but we'll see if that stays. In the past, when the state of Illinois has not funded us, because those are projects that we can end or not begin more easily than others, that's the first place we go to balance our budget. So it's highly likely that we will not be spending $8 million on our operations and maintenance capital outlay. If the state doesn't come through, we'll be reducing that and amending our budget. On the left, I've got the funds broken out. You can really see how large our education fund is, followed by our operations and maintenance fund, which is 9.1%, and then transportation. We are really in the people business. This is about taking care of kids and educating students, and that requires staff. As you're all aware, because you've attended all of the sessions, we finalized our Engage 204, and I'd like to go through those and talk about how those play into this budget. The cost to bring our average class size from 27 to 24 would be $16.7 million. That is an annual cost and continual cost, and that is not budgeted in the fiscal year 19 budget. The cost to bring our teachers to middle of the salaries of our comparable districts is $7.5 million annually. That is not built into this budget. The cost to complete our maintenance and deferred projects is $10 million. That's roofs that we've not replaced that are past due, tuck pointing of masonry, asphalt repair that's past due. That has not been budgeted. The cost to update our locks and intercoms of $2 million is not in this budget. The cost to bring our capital and maintenance spending to the recommended level of $4 million, that's the $8 million that I talked about earlier. And if the state of Illinois pays us, we'll be able to be at that space, that point with our capital outlay and our maintenance. The cost to complete our elementary air condition is at $7 million and is currently not budgeted. Lease space for alternative high schools and STEPS programs at 1.2 is not budgeted, and additional mental health professionals and instructional coaches in schools at 4.2. So I know that the Board of Education in June is going to receive a report from the community, and if need be, we can amend this budget or make those changes for the fiscal year 20 budget, but the opportunity will be there, but it's not in the draft budget at this time.
Jay, just for clarity, the $4 million maintenance is in the budget, but it depends on the evidence-based funding coming through, right? So out of
Yes.
all this list, that's the only one that currently is in your projection.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. In summary, it's a balanced budget with $938,099 in excess projected by the end of the fiscal year. All 6 funds are projected to have an excess at the end of the fiscal year. The fund balance to expenditures is 30.24%. The improved economy has really helped us to be able to manage the 5 different funds. And that's one reason we're able to balance all of those. Tonight, the Board of Education approved a resolution to loan money from the working cash fund to the education fund. You did the same thing last year, but you did the working cash fund, the transportation fund, and the operations and maintenance fund authorized loans. With the improved economy and our tax rates dropping, we're able to levy more money right into the education fund and not reach our cap in the education fund, which means that we don't have to worry so much about loaning money to those funds. Last year, you approved the resolution to transfer out of 3 funds, and we didn't need to. It would be nice that this year, with the resolution that you passed to loan from the working cash to the education, that again, we don't need to. So hopefully that continues to improve, because that's a movement in a positive direction. Pension cost shifts is not factored into this budget, and that's something that for as long as I've been doing this job, I've been talking to the Board of Education about, and Springfield has been talking about passing some type of pension cost shift. So if that were to occur, we would have to make some changes in the budget. Property tax freeze is also not factored in this budget. We're anticipating that we're going to receive the 2.1% increase in December. Our categorical payments are prorated. I'm anticipating all 4 of them to be received, but they're prorated at the 2017 funding level. And again, this assumes that the state of Illinois will make all of its payments on time, which means that they'll come in time for us to book all of the payments in fiscal year 2019, and that they don't come after August 30th, and we have to book them in fiscal year 2020. The few times that we've done that, the Board of Education that year decided to go into deficit spending, use those funds to get some projects done.
Jay, can you remind us where we stand with categoricals right now, please?
That's a great question. Right now, we've received 1 of our categorical payments. We have 3 outstanding categorical payments, which are about $7.5 million total. And we have not received our first payment of Tier 2 funding out of new evidence-based funding, which is just short of $1 million. So the state, for fiscal year 18, owes us about $8.5 million.
So we anticipate that first evidence-based funding payment in April is what I'm hearing. Is that what you're hearing?
That is. But I have to say that we heard that that payment may come in January, and then February, and then March. So, we really need to have those evidence-based funding formula tier payments come before August 30th, and we need to have our 3 remaining categoricals come before August 30th.
Now, the state is supposed to pass a budget, right, by May? It has been very eerie. It's been very quiet. I have not heard anything about the budget or the pension cost shift, the property tax freeze, or a continuation of the evidence-based funding model. Is that me, or is
They're out
that?
of session.
It's been quiet.
They
I
were-
know they're out of session, but usually there's posturing, and I hear very little posturing going one way or the other.
It has been quiet.
So, along with that, though, here's my concern. I think they'll get to the Tier 2 funding payment eventually, hopefully. My real concern is those 3 categoricals that essentially they budgeted for last May. That, I mean, is that all up to the comptroller essentially when they release those, or because those categoricals were essentially earmarked. Maybe I'm just asking too in the weeds questions, but we're just crossing our fingers, basically, aren't we, with those
Well-
categoricals?
Yes, but I think that the state of Illinois has a backlog of payments, and they're trying to figure out the best way to make their payments and to get caught up. And up until this point, schools, at least this year with the categoricals, have not received those funds. They're going to other sources.
Yeah, okay.
I would like to see some recommendations from administration on catching up with the deferred maintenance payments. That's a debt, in my mind. It's not an official debt. We don't have certificates. Doesn't have a term, doesn't have an interest rate. We don't know how much that's costing us. We don't know when bill's gonna come due. We can't levy for that debt separately like we can our other debt. That comes out of our education fund, that comes out of our transportation fund, that comes out of our general budget.
Correct.
All else being equal, if we were to pay off all that debt, attempt to pay off all that debt this year, that results in our budget being significantly out of balance.
Correct.
So I'd like to have some recommendations on how we get to a point where, just like the prior boards had a payment plan to bring that number down, I would like for administration to make some recommendations on how to do that as well.
I'd be happy to do that.
If the board needs to come to a consensus on that, and not just my opinion. That's all I got. Otherwise, great presentation.
It's still going. He's got some more.
On the non-operating side, just a moment ago, you approved the resolution to pay off our 2 debt certificates. So that's a very positive. And what you have here is you have our debt services, which is our bonds that we do actually levy for, and we've got until 2017. We've got our capital projects, which is where our developer contributions go, and which is paying off the debt certificates. And in 2027, the administration and the Board of Education at that time is going to have a great opportunity to finally pay off all of our debt from our schools and look at doing some things different in the school district. But this is a balanced budget, follows the plan that was set forth, and makes sense. And I appreciate the board following through with that. Our next steps, we're going to continue to develop the tentative fiscal year 2019 budget. Board members, if you have thoughts or would like to meet with me, I'd be happy to meet with you. On the May 7th board meeting, we'll approve the tentative budget, and the June 11th board meeting will have a budget hearing and final approval. This is much sooner than we normally do it. Our old model was to do it in August and September, and now we're doing it in May and June. And years ago, it made sense to do it in the fall because the state made some decisions and we could make some sense of it. But the last couple of years, even waiting into the fall, the state didn't have a budget and we were still guessing. So we're making really sound decisions with the information that we've got. Strong likelihood that at some point we'll have to amend this budget. We may have to amend the fiscal year 18 budget. I've talked about that for some time once the state of Illinois comes through with its evidence-based funding payments. And we've got up until June 30th to do that. So we may pass a fiscal year 19 budget and amend a fiscal year 18 budget all within a real short window of time here before the school year ends. We've got the auditors in. The board approved new auditors. We got both the internal and external auditors in, and look forward to providing that report to you all in the fall as well.
Other questions? Thank you.
I knew Ms. Donahue wasn't going to ask any questions.
7:40.
Board of Education update, we did not have a LUN meeting, so I really don't have a report beyond. I know Ms. Deming Ms. Donahue will be going and representing the board at the National School Board Convention, so we look forward to hearing your report back. I think the rest of us have gone, so this is your first opportunity, and hopefully you'll find it as beneficial as we have in terms of being a better board member. Not that you're not great ones already.
Mr. President, I want to take an opportunity to just thank my co-board members for allowing the opportunity for me to have to attend the National Association board meeting so that I could gain the knowledge that you guys have.
I second that.
Download the app, pick out the sessions you want to go to, split up your time. You don't need to be, I mean, we can all fill you in on that, but yeah, it's a good time, tons of information.
And a reminder that April 11th, we're going to have our board self-evaluation with the Illinois Association of School Board Representatives, so make sure you look at all the information that has been sent. So, and you probably will get some more too. I will be calling the rep there and asking her to hopefully ask you what our priorities should be in terms of discussion. So let's see what happens with that. So look at your email often from IASB. I guess with the community engagement, we want to thank, on behalf of the board, I want to thank all the community members who did participate in the engagement opportunity. Lots of information was gathered. We're still in the process of community engagement because our facilitating team will probably have to meet several times in order to generate a recommendation to come back to us, hopefully in June, July, and present their findings and recommendations to us. Anything you want to add with that?
Mr. President, do community members have an opportunity to still share input at this point?
On the website.
Yeah, do you want to, somebody want to share that?
The website, theengage204.org, right, Janet?
So if there are any community members who did not have an opportunity to attend any of the forums that we held, we truly appreciate still hearing from you. Engage204.org. Please take an opportunity to send an email to that location so you can share any thoughts that you want to ensure that the facilitating team receives as it is compiling their information to submit to the board.
And I had one last final request. When I went to the IPPC meeting, they had a lot of discussion about what happens at a board meeting, and one of those was, is the budget ever posted? And I just want to remind community members too that everything we do at the board meeting is posted and is available, but if we could even make it more user-friendly with what Jay did today in terms of his first efforts, that would be great. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn and go blue, by the way.
Do we have a
I second.